Hi everybody, Johnny here. I hope you're doing great today. You can find more good math at jmathpage.com. Today we're looking at multiplying 2's. And we'll be looking at it like you would see in a times table. So let's take a look at them right now. This is probably what you've seen before. Well, I put down the 2's 3 times because I want to think about them in 3 different ways. The first way I want to think about the 2's is going to be through addition patterns. And this should be familiar to you. So we can think about multiplication as adding and adding and adding the same number again and again. So let's let that help us. We know that when we see 1 times 2, we're going to add 2 just one time. So we can say 1 times 2 is going to be 2. That's simple enough. When we go to 2 times 2, what we're saying is we're going to add 2 2 times. We can also think about it as we've added 2 one time here, we'll have to add another 2. So I could write it this way. I could say 2 times 2 is the same as 1 times 2, right? Plus 2 more. So 1 times 2 was 2, and 2 plus 2 will give us 4. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of addition here. If we look at 3 times 2, we know that 3 times 2 is 1 more 2 than 2 times 2. So we can write that. We can think of 3 times 2 as 2 times 2 plus 2 more. 3 times 2 is 2 times 2, and 1 more 2. And that will give us 6. 4 times 2 is the same as 3 times 2, and 1 more 2, right? So 3 times 2, and 1 more 2. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 more will give us 8. We're always adding 2 more each time. So you can see how it's growing by 2's, right? Plus 2 each time. So we know the next one, 5 times 2, is the same as 4 times 2, and 2 more, which means it's going to be 8, and 2 more, giving us 10. 6 times 2 is the same as 5 times 2, and 2 more, and 5 times 2 gave us 10, and if we add 2 more, 10 and 2 more will give us 12, right? 7 times 2. If I don't know what 7 times 2 is, I can always say, well, I do know what 6 times 2 is. It's 12, right? So 6 times 2 is 12, but I'll need to have 2 more, right? So I'll have to add 2 more. So 12 and 2 more, 12 and 2 more will give us 14. We're always adding 2 more. 8 times 2 is 7 times 2 and 2 more, right? 7 times 2 and 2 more. So 7 times 2 gave us 14, but we know we need to have 2 more. 14 and 2 more will give us 16. 9 times 2. If I don't know what 9 times 2 is, I know that 8 times 2 gives us 16. So I can think of 9 times 2 as 8 times 2 and 2 more. So let's go ahead and add 2 more. 9 times 2 is the same as 16 plus 2, 18 altogether. And lastly, 10 times 2. 10 times 2 is 9 times 2, and 2 more. So we'll add our 2 more, and we know that 10 times 2 is 18 plus 2 gives us 20. So now we've done all of them. We've gone through and we found out that 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 2 is 6, 4 times 2 is 8, 5 times 2 is 10, 6 times 2 is 12, 7 times 2 is 14, 8 times 2 is 16, 9 times 2 is 18, and 10 times 2 is 20. And we used an addition pattern, repeated addition, adding 2 every single time. That's one way to think about it. But let's look at it a little differently now. Let's look at our 2's table this time. This time we want to look at digit patterns. There's certain things that happen with digits in our sums, in our products with multiplication. So digit patterns. Let's go ahead and put these down. So let's look across. If we say 1 times 2 equals 2, let's go ahead and write it. 1 times 2 equals 2. 2 times 2 equals 4. 3 times 2 equals 6. 4 times 2 equals 8. 5 times 2 equals 10. 6 times 2 equals 12. 7 times 2 equals 14. 8 times 2 equals 16. 9 times 2 equals 18. And 10 times 2 equals 20. Now I want to look at just the last digit this time. If we look here, we have a 2, and we also have a 2 here. So 1 times 2 gives us 2, but 6 times 2 gives us a 2 as part of 12. 2 times 2 gives us 4, but I also see a 4 here as part of 7 times 2. So 2, 4, 2, 4. What comes next? I see that 3 times 2 gives us 6. There's another 6 here. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6. Is there a pattern? 2, 4, 6, and now an 8 here. 2, 4, 6, and an 8 here. And let's go one more, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, and there's a 0 in 10, but there's also a 0 in 20. All right. So if I look at the pattern, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 0. All right, so I know that's a pattern. Now I'm going to write these digits in order. So I'm going to write out 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. And I'm going to write down that they are always the last digit. So whenever you're multiplying something by 2 or doubling it, it will always have to end with a 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0. Okay? No matter what. Well, what is special about 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8? Well, you know this one too. It's always even. So we have to know that about multiplying by 2's. These will always be the last digits, and of course these will make any multiple of 2 even. Alright, so we looked at addition patterns and digit patterns. Now I'm going to give you the last one, and this one's the most interesting, at least I think so. I'm calling this one smart sums. Okay, and we're going to use this as a way to think about multiplying numbers we're not so sure about. And in this case, I only want you to pay attention to 3 of these. Let's start with just the 3 we care about, and knowing these 3 will help us to solve any of the other multiples of 2. So let's start here. We need to have 1 times 2, which we know is 2. We need to have 3 times 2, which we know is 6. And we need to have 5 times 2, which we know is 10. Those are the only ones we need. Okay? So let's start with those. If we think about 2 times 2, we can think about it as double 1 times 2, right? So we can think of 2 times 2 as the same as 1 times 2 plus 1 times 2 more, right? Doubling it. 1 times 2 and 1 times 2 again. So we can say 1 times 2 plus 1 times 2 is equal to 2 times 2. That's good. We know that 1 times 2 equals 2, and we can say the other one also equals 2. So we can say 2 plus 2 is equal to 2 times 2. We also know that 2 plus 2 equals 4. So now we can see that 2 times 2 is equal to 4. Okay. What about 4 times 2? Well, let's use what we used already. We know that 4 times 2 is the same as 2 times 2 and 2 times 2 more, because 4 is double 2. So let's write that out. This will be the same as 2 times 2 plus 2 times 2. And that will be the same thing as 4 times 2. Okay, so think about that for a moment. We know these already. 2 times 2 is equal to 4. So this is going to be 4 plus 4, 4 plus 4, is equal to 4 times 2. We also know that 4 plus 4 equals 8. So now we know that 4 times 2 equals 8. 4 times 2 equals 8. Alright, can you use the pattern to figure out 6 times 2? Well, 6 times 2, we know that 6 is double 3, but we also know what the product of 3 is here. 3 times 2 equals 6, so that will be good. So 6 times 2 we can write out as 3 times 2 plus 3 times 2 again. We know that 3 times 2 equals 6, so we'll add it here again. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 3 times 2 is also 6. And we all want this to equal 6 times 2. So 6 plus 6 is equal to 12. And now we know that 6 times 2 is the same as 12. So 6 times 2 is equal to 12. We can check over here. We had it before, right? Now those were all easy because we doubled them. We doubled the 1's to make 2, we doubled the 2's to make 4, we doubled the 3's to make 6. What do we do with the 7 times 2? Well, we can break the 7 into numbers we know. We know that 3 plus 4 makes 7. So let's use these two to make this one. We know that 3 times 2 plus 4 times 2 is the same as 7 times 2. Okay, so 3 plus 4 makes 7. It's all the same. We also know that 3 times 2 equals 6. We also know that 4 times 2 equals 8. So we can say 6 plus 8 is equal to 7 times 2. If we add 6 plus 8, we get 14. Knowing that, we can say that 7 times 2 equals 14. Okay, what about 8 times 2? Well, this one becomes easy again because we know that 8 is double 4. So let's use that. 8 times 2 is the same as 4 times 2 plus 4 times 2. We know that is the same as 8 times 2. We also know that 4 times 2 equals 8. Right? So 8 plus 8 is equal to 8 times 2. 8 plus 8 gives us 16. So we know that 8 times 2 equals 16. So we can say that. 8 times 2 equals 16. Alright? Let's look at 9 times 2. Well, 9 times 2 we can break apart again too. We can think of 9 as 4 plus 5. Let's write that out. 4 times 2 plus 5 times 2 is equal to 9 times 2. We know that 4 times 2 equals 8, and 5 times 2 is equal to 10. So we know that 9 times 2 is the same as 8 plus 10. 9 times 2 is the same as 8 plus 10, or 18. So we can say 9 times 2 is equal to 18. What about the last one? 10 times 2. If we double that, if we think of 10 times 2 as double 5 times 2, then we have to double this one. So 5 times 2 plus 5 times 2 is equal to 10 times 2. 5 times 2 equals 10, plus 5 times 2 equals 10 is equal to 10 times 2. Well, 10 plus 10 equals 20. So we can say 10 times 2 equals 20. Now, this way of figuring out the multiples is about adding parts of the multiplier. So 6 can be thought of as 3 and 3. 7 could be thought of as 3 and 4. And that's something you can do with any kind of multiplication. So we looked at multiplying 2's through addition patterns, through digit patterns, and through smart sums. I hope this helps you think about the 2's better.